this is the worldwide debut of the What's New in zOS 3.1 GA presentation. We announced yesterday, and the announcement link, there's a PDF file I sent out that I guess will be posted or is posted, but it'll have a link to the GA announcement here. For me, I'm Gary Puchkoff. I think I know quite a few of you. I'm at IBM for 40 years, and I work primarily on zOS and zOS components, and my team develops the entirety of zOS. So this presentation should cover everything that's in the zOS 3.1 announcement. So let's move on. The normal pace of this presentation, if you've seen the preview presentation of this release, which was last February, March, I've updated it, or we've updated it with the content that's generally available. This includes some things we didn't care to talk about in February, March, and newer things that we were working on. So I'll cover everything that's in the release. The table of contents, we go through the release overview, briefly hardware support, and then we go through the various areas in order from application development to security. Because this is the GA level of the deck, there's nothing in the continuous delivery section. But as this, every quarter when we put out an announcement, we update those things that are new with red CDs, this continuous delivery marking. And so you can tell, and there's also a summary page at the end of the deck in this continuous delivery section that would outline the various pages that have been updated with the red CDs. And then finally, there are the statements of direction that are relevant to this release. I won't go through that section today, unless you guys really want me to. And then variously throughout the presentation, there's this little icon here for content solutions, and those are links to more detailed information. Okay. So this release is all about AI. This starting in version 3, we're infusing artificial intelligence into the operating system to continue to move the technology forward. The IBM 3.1 is a new version. This is the first new version we've done in over 10 years. There are some changes in licensing, but the pricing for the base is the same. Okay, so as a general rule, it's almost like having a 2.6, right? You're just moving forward. It's not going to be any harder to migrate to this release than any other standard zOS release. But we're going to put AI throughout the system, and this will be part of our strategy going forward. And I'll talk more about that, but this is about two types of AI. There's AI for your applications, and there's AI for the operating system operation itself. And we'll talk about both of those. We're also focused on application modernization and simplification. And so this is around new application capabilities and new simplification technologies around management. And then lastly, cyber resiliency, continuing the extraordinary security capabilities that we have in the Z platform and zOS to help you to maintain a secure posture throughout your enterprise. So talking about AI, this is about scaling up the value of the data that you have in your zOS system and helping you to drive transformation using intelligent automation. So, we're continuing to support hardware accelerated artificial intelligence, letting you apply our AI and machine learning to, as much or almost all your data as you can. So this would be something like, being able to score every transaction that you have in a bank, or every transaction that's processed for a credit card, because we have inline scoring capabilities and hardware acceleration. The AI capabilities are also applicable to simplifying and automating tasks. So we're going to build that right into zOS. We have a new framework in zOS called the AI framework for zOS to help to augment the operating system for IT processes and simplifying management, reducing skills. The first implementation of this will be around AI for WLM. And this is designed to predict the upcoming batch workload and make changes ahead of time so that we're ready to handle it. And we'll talk more about that. So in the release, we had kind of 5 areas we focus on: AI platforms and operations. And we talked about this. So this is intelligent automation, new AI framework for operations that we'll go into a little more, and things like a certified answerable collection for automation. We also have a big area of application modernization, building new and modernized applications using more modern languages, more modern APIs. And it includes continuing enhancements to container extensions, the ability to run Linux applications in an address space on zOS. The third area is management simplification, and this is all around, exposing more popular interfaces for management. zOS enough is the center of this, and introducing new features to make it easier to track changes, in this case, like change tracking. For security and resiliency, protection is still really important to us. And we have a thing called an authorized code scanner, and now we have an authorized code monitor. The monitor runs in real time, guarding against possible vulnerabilities. We also have things like system recovery boost, which I'll talk about some of the enhancements there. And we have new interfaces for integrating some of the operating system resiliency capabilities into third-party products. And finally, for data serving and storage, there's a lot of modernization occurring there around data, and that's the ability to do things like NoSQL APIs, or a popular thing is being able to store zOS objects in the cloud using standard object storage interfaces. Everything that I just presented and will continue to present in this chart is posted on a public GitHub repository. It's listed there. If you just search Google for GitHub and zOS, you'll find it. There's a section called zOS Education, and each release is outlined there. So the new one is now, of course, zOS 3.1 Education. And you can find this presentation there, as well as typically about 70 or more presentations covering all the topics that I have in this in much more detail. This is the release overview chart. The release overview chart on the top is the machines, right? So Z16 being the newest. And on the side here are the releases, with 3.1 being the newest. And you can see that we dropped support for the Z13 and Z13S with this machine, this release. And, we're going to continue as we have on a 2-year cadence for service. So 5 years of service after GA, which will put us at September 2028. For those of you who haven't gotten off of zOS 2.3, you're in extended service now, and you need to be thinking about getting off of that. Yellow items are where we have extended support still in place, and we'll be dropping extended support for 2.2 this year. Okay. Hardware, we have, the new machine, the Z16 model A01. This is a multi-frame model, and you can have up to 32 terabytes, per partition. zOS supports up to 16, and the machine itself can go up to 40 terabytes. The items in blue are things that we did for this release. I'll be talking a little bit more about a couple of these items coming up. We also have a single frame model A02. It has up to 68 cores, and it can have up to 16 terabytes in memory. Previously for zOS, I believe the number of general purpose processors is limited to something like 6. And that meant you were limited to 12 zips. When the announcement of the A02 came out, we relaxed the 2-to-1 rule. So you can now have, if you wanted, 1 GP and 67 zips if you wanted to. I don't really anticipate anybody doing that, but you could. The Z16, as I said, has up to 16 terabytes of memory for zOS. There are 20 new instructions to help improve COBOL and AI applications, including a new AI accelerator. There's a coupling facility update to CF level 25 with a number of nice enhancements. And speaking of the AI accelerator, not only do we have this new piece of hardware, we have software libraries that wrapper it and are manifested in the deep learning compiler and the Z deep neural network library. The other thing we announced back in April with the A02 is zip eligibility is now extended to include Python applications. So if you write in Python, the Python apps, and you had a zip, the Python apps will be dispatched to the zip when able. We manage that by keeping up to 70% of the Python execution can be zip eligible. So, so that's new, and we think going to be well received. I mentioned the 2-to-1 ratio already. Okay. Crypto. The ICSF hardware has full support for the Z16, including the new Crypto 8 Express coprocessor. This brings along a bunch of new quantum safe algorithms. I always like saying these dilithium and Kyber. Anyway, it makes me think of Star Trek, but new TR31 options for Visa payment, and support for improved CRLs, support also, in the area of CKDS and other things. There's validated boot. This is a new capability that's a combination of the hardware and the operating system. During IPL, the hardware will check to see that the operating system is digitally signed, and then all the digital signatures throughout IPL are being checked by the system to make sure that the zOS nucleus and LPA live modules are intact and untampered with, and that they originate from a trusted source from the time they were built until the time they're used. So if there's any unauthorized changes to those, we would detect that and you would know. It's designed to meet the NIAP 4.3 specification, and we've added support also in the custom offerings driver. That's the code that you use to build the first zOS if you don't have one. So you could even verify that. Okay, this is the burst chart. It's the release overview. I'm not going to go through this one here because I'm going to cover each area. The application development is where I'm going to start, and I'm going to go clockwise through usability and skills, systems management, back to enhancing security. Okay, so that's how the charts are going to go now. Each section in the deck has a description of what we're focused on for that particular area. I won't cover that in any detail here. So let's start in application development. The first big area is AI on zOS. We have new materials around jumpstarting your journey to AI. We have a community that has blogs and announcements and things in it that's listed. We have client engineering workshops where we can come to your site, or you can come to ours and go through a discussion of how you could take advantage of AI for your business applications. And there's also the Z and Linux 1 getting started pages that are there. The open source AI frameworks that we have are primarily the identical same ones that are available on Linux on Z. So they run in ZCX if you're on zOS. So you can deploy these AI frameworks co-located with your applications for low latency. Popular machine learning, and deep learning frameworks, TensorFlow, ZD, DLC are available. Some of them leverage the AI accelerator, and you utilize Anaconda to install them. And there's a little bit more about Anaconda there. We also have optimized libraries and compilers. I mentioned ZVNN, Deep Neural Network, before. We also have SnapML now available, and TensorFlow. So if you want to learn more about that, there's a link there at the bottom. We have the IBM Z platform for Apache Spark, which is now at the 3.2 level. This is an in-memory compute engine and analytics runtime for big data. And there's a content solution here to learn more about that. And then the Python AI Toolkit is a collection of industry-leading AI Python packages that are provided and in this product here, and you can learn more about that at that content solution. So a lot of AI capabilities there. We have two product level offerings. One of them is IBM Watson Machine Learning for zOS, or WMLZ, and this is the full set of capabilities for building and deploying AI frameworks on zOS. And we have the core edition. This is the pieces that are being used in our AI framework. It's a lightweight version of Watson Machine Learning. It supports the full life cycle of the models. It's developer friendly, and it runs on zOS. So, now, a lot of these AI items, as well as things that aren't AI, run in zOS container extensions. This is the ability to run Linux on zOS. The container, so you can think of it like, Kix can run Kix applications. Well, this Linux ZCX address space runs Linux applications. And what's really nice about it is the identical same binary, images that run on Linux on Z under ZVM or ZKVM also run the same on ZCX. There's
Gary,
no required. Yeah.
Gary, we have a quick question in the chat. I'll read it out for you. So from Philippe, will ZCX for Docker containers continue to be supported solution in the future, or is it just going to be ZCX in the context of Red Hat OpenShift?
No, we intend to keep the two offerings out there, right? OpenShift is a great solution for people who want to run industrial strength Kubernetes applications, meaning multi-server with either high availability or dynamic scaling, right? If what you want to do is run a more, let me say, localized application, the Docker solution would be the one to use for that. And yeah, that's going to still be supported and maintained. Okay. In fact, we're using that single address space Docker solution for a number of things into the future that you'll see. And so we're very much, counting on that going forward. I'll also point out that, for those of you who've looked at the OpenShift solution, we are evaluating and working on a single node OpenShift solution as well. So for those that want to kick the tires, for example. So hopefully that helped answer your question.
Yep. Thanks, Gary.
Yep. So this, ZCX is a virtualization engine, and then as the question asked, we have one deployment option, which is a IBM provided Linux with a container, an OCI, Open Container Initiative container kind of runtime in it, or Docker, is what people would say. We also have an offering which is the same thing, if you will, from an application point of view, but with the additional capabilities of orchestrating those deliverables. So, you can have a big OpenShift cluster, which has many, many virtual ZCX servers in it, and you can deploy many applications into that cluster, okay? And the OpenShift technology helps you to manage it, and, the number of them, and the capabilities like that. I did want to point out that ZCX can scale up on a single zOS image to 64 virtual servers. So each one could be 1 terabyte of memory. Obviously, they can't have 64 1 terabyte ones on a server, but you can spread them across the sysplex, and that's fine. They can have up to 245 virtual devices per server. So think of it as disks, and 1 terabyte of memory on each disk, because that's the vSAN limit, right, for that, and up to 1,000 containers in each server. And more than 98% of the ZCX MIPS are zip offloaded in our lab measurements. There is a self-service trial, so you don't have to talk to anybody if you have zOS 2.4, 2.5, or 3.1 to kick the tires and give it a try. It's time bomb limited, so at the end of 90 days, it shuts itself off. And if you want to learn more about it, there's a link there. We've added support to ZCX over the last several releases. More recently, we added some support around currency and LDAP to support larger UIDs and GIDs. We've updated our workflows. Everything you do to create a ZCX uses a zOSMF workflow. So once you fill out the first one, pretty much you can just run it over and over again. It's pretty easy. We have support for NFS persistent storage. So this allows you to securely access your data using the zOS NFS server or others. ZCX supports is available for WebSphere Hybrid Edition, so you can run WebSphere Hybrid Edition co-located with zOS. I mentioned OpenShift. It's a separate product, and it brings the Red Hat benefits to your applications. We also have ZCX for OpenShift shared persistent storage support, or support for what we call IBM Storage Fusion, which used to be called Spectrum Fusion. It's a enterprise grade persistent storage option, built differently than what you typically use on zOS. Okay, we have a Linux application registry, or Linux One container registry. Kind of like Docker Hub has applications in it. This one also has them. These come from IBM, which means the images are built from the source. The images are scanned for known vulnerabilities and provided with reports. There are hashes for the images, and it's the F word free of charge. And there's a link down there at the bottom to get you to see what's out there. And then in containers, we also have a statement of direction that we issued, which hopefully will deliver any day now, that will deliver a Kubernetes orchestration for Unix system services applications. So this would provide an OCI container runtime for, let's say, a Java application, to be deployed just as easily as you could deploy it on Linux. And, this is something that's a tremendous amount of engineering to get this on zOS, and we're looking forward to being able to make that available. We have a number of compiler offerings for zOS, typical COBOL and PL1 and currency continues. We have the automatic binary optimizer, which can take your COBOL code and re-optimize it without going back to the source. We have the XLC and C++ compiler, as well as the open XLC and C++ compilers. The open one is designed for porting code. We have Semaru Runtime Edition, version 11. This is Java 11, and Node.js, Python, and Go. As far as Java goes, 3.1 will GA with Semaru 11 as the minimum required Java level for zOS. Java 8 is still supported. It runs on zOS 3.1 for your applications and compatibility, right? But we did do a statement of direction already for Java 17, okay? And the GA of that is very soon. I will point out that while we said the Semaru 11 is the minimum required level, we have 3 components that have not completed their move: capacity provisioning manager, predictive failure analysis, and InfoPrint server. We expect that they will be done by the end of this year. So, and the server pack will be shipped with both Java levels, until we don't require it anymore. And then if you only get Java 8 after that, if you ask for it, okay? We also expect that the operating system will have to go through a migration from Java 11 to Java 17 during the life of the 3.1 operating system. And, the details of that will start to come out when we announce Java 17. Okay, and for those of you who think of Java as new, it's celebrated its 25th year being on zOS, so not so new. We also have a number of enhancements to COBOL Java interoperability. Support here is now built into LE, language environment, and we've done some innovation here to allow you to run 31-bit and 64-bit LE in the same address space. This enables traversal between them. So if you had a 31-bit COBOL program and you needed to call Java, for Java 8, you could run 31-bit Java. There is no 31-bit Java for Java 11 and up. So you'd be running a 64-bit Java. So we support now a 31-bit COBOL calling a 64-bit Java and back. So that's really important for clients who were mixing COBOL and Java previously. This new capability, though, makes it much easier to interoperate between the two languages. And while we focused on COBOL Java, this could be applied to any other high-level language or even assembler. So, okay. For ISPF, we added support for PDSE v2 member generations. This is, when you save a member, you can indicate when you create the PDSE, I want you to keep the last 3 generations, the last 3 saves of the member, if you will. So there's now interfaces in ISPF to let you see the generation numbers and be able to see the list of them and select them, and some services under the covers that can be used by applications to access the older generations. We've also added dataset key label support to the ISPF allocate command. The Unix directory list is now case insensitive or has the option for it. And the settings for global edit color settings are now available in variables. We have a new shell that's optional on zOS called Z shell. It's a ported version, and it's a Unix shell that includes command line editing, spelling, programmable command completion, etc. Lots of good stuff there. We've also made some updates to the Unix utilities. SU has auditing capability, date support for Julian, find utility, handling new null characters. We've also done some work on the PS command, supporting grep recursive, and some new utilities, read link and banner. The zlib encryption enhancement, we've added a callable interface to that, which is CRC32, which gives you a cyclical redundancy check call, which is optimized using SIMD instructions, so it's faster. And there are some new C runtime APIs and headers to make porting Linux applications easier. Our JSON parser now supports comment support, which is basically single and multi-line comments. So you can parse JSON text with comments, but there isn't any way to retrieve the comments programmatically. You just skip over them, right? And we've improved the CPU and elapsed time of the parser by up to 50%. OpenSSH is brought up to the 8.4 P1 level, which means support for FIDO and FIDO2 based keys. We've upstreamed our code into OpenSSH and basically done this for currency. The XML toolkit, which was previously a separately orderable feature of zOS, is now included in zOS by default. So the Xerces and the Zaylan XML parsers can now be used in the operating system. Lastly, we have some new APIs. There's a vSAM dataset type called vSAMDB, and there's C API wrappers to this to let you get access to this vSAMDB. It's basically, think of it as a JSON object store or file store. So you can put things in with key value pairs and pull them out. We've recently put in support for Java as well. So C and then Java. And you can learn more about that at the solution page there.
Sorry, Gary, there's another question from Philippe. I think it was the last slide potentially. Is the ZSH shell supported when connected to OMVS with functions like command termination prompting?
Yeah, that was here, Z shell.
Yeah.
So it is, that's something that you would set up for Unix system services, yes. And then the second part of the question was what?
When connected to, is the ZSH shell supported when connected to OMVS with functions like command termination prompting?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah. Okay. I don't know specifically about command termination prompting, but we can find out about that. I'm sure if you, well, if that's real important, have them send me an email. I can find out. I don't know
Roger
the
that.
answer.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay. All right. So on to usability and skills. And of course, this is all about the management facility. And, I know that, some people are using it. I know some people aren't using it. Last couple releases back, we went over to this desktop metaphor. It gives you multiple windows. Searching and browsing and editing files is built in. For those of you who aren't familiar, this little magnifying glass in the bottom right corner is really important, because when you click that, that's how you go find data sets, okay, or files. And that's how you get the editor to come up and everything else. We also have the ability to, do simple job manipulations, so submit, query, and browse jobs. And the editor, as you can see here, is syntax sensitive, and will highlight things that look like data set names, for example. And if you click them, it will bring up another copy of the editor to show you that data set, etc. We've added support to the desktop for all USS file operations, including things like copy, rename, change file permissions, update attributes. We've added support for dataset and file compare. So you can use the desktop editor to compare two Unix files or to compare two members in PDS, and it'll show you the differences. And I have a couple examples on the next page. And we have the ability to upload and download files, sequential data sets, PDSs and VDSEs, or ZFS files between zOS and your desktop using a couple of clicks, or to use drag and drop. So either of those, and it'll bring it up in whatever local favorite editor that you want. Here's the 2-up compare capability, and you can see, up in the upper left corner, there's a JCL example. We have an example using ParmLib, and we have an example using SampLib or Rex. All of these follow the same pattern. You have an overview pane, and it'll show you where the changes are with the little colors. And then when you put the little gray area, that's what you're looking at, right? And so you can see this was removed or changed, and this is added or, updated. And so, kind of really nice, it's built in. The next one is Security Configuration Assistant. This is an application that's designed to help you to configure basic zOS security. A component or a product has to provide the config file for it. And if they do, then you can go through and see all of the security requirements of that component or product in one shot. You don't have to start the thing and fail and start the thing and fail and start the thing and fail and keep reading the ICH messages or whatever security product messages you get. In addition to having that capability, there's a programmatic API that lets you validate or an application validate proper security configuration before execution. It has the ability to fix things if you're permitted to do so, with a fix it button. And we can even now run the SCA, Security Configuration Assistant, before zOS MF starts the first time. There's a line mode version of it. So we also have a Sysplex management plugin. The plugin allows you to look at Sysplex configuration, lots of capability there, modify the configuration. Then we added the ability to do CFRM policy editing, and you can do create, delete, rename, activate, copy, bulk structures, editing and modifying structures. It has referential integrity checking, and it replaces the batch utility in the sense that you don't have to run that anymore, but it can also use it or coexist with it. We've recently added in 3.1 the CF structure sizer. So for those of you who've used the couple of different options we've given you for sizing before. You might like this one even better. It's an easy tool for resizing structures. Gloriously, it retains the CF sizing information. So the next time you come in, it'll, see that and know what it is. It's going to be based on the CF level going forward. So, if you're on CF level 25, going to 26, when we put out 26, you'll be able to do the sizing based on a level that you don't even have yet. It's based on, it has a set of programmatic REST APIs. You can import and export the files and structures. Lots of capability, and you can even do policy comparison. So the jobs API was updated to eliminate the use of common information model. You'll see that over time, we're going to eliminate the common information model. We did a statement of direction in the 3.1 deck saying this is the last release we're going to have soon. We've added additional notification points for jobs so that you can be told when they're submitted and when they begin execution. There are storage management REST APIs for data class and storage class, as well as an API to add a volume to a storage group. There are REST APIs for files and data sets that now support international characters in the data set or file name. We support manipulating USS symlinks, creation of symlinks, and we did some improvements in header management around that service. The workflows engine is really something we lean on a lot. We now have automated policy-based archiving. We have support for signed workflow steps. So you can sign a step and use that to know that when you switch to another ID, it hasn't been modified. And there's a catch-all workflow policy for archiving. We have REST APIs to access syslog, REST APIs for accessing system symbols, REST APIs for accessing other things. The system task improvements, we've made some ability to validate connections to other systems. So for those of you who have multiple sysplexes, you can talk between them using that. And the incident log application now supports the parallel dump utility and HTTPS. We have a component called the management services catalog. This contains functions that you do on what we might call day 2 operations. So, when you have to add a load library to a linked list, or you want to, replace the receive order certificate or other things. So we've been creating these services, but the services we create are a minor aspect of this. What's valuable is that you can use it to create services that you do in your shop. So you can learn more about that down at the bottom there. Release to release upgrades is a big thing. We've included the upgrade workflow in zOS 3.1. We separated the Z16 upgrade from the 3.1 upgrade workflow, and we ship those independently, but when they're updated. There's a fixed cat you can use to get that so that it's available to you. And continuing to kind of make improvements to the upgrade process, making it more automated and more helpful. We'll continue to do that going forward. The management services catalog, oops, I went the wrong direction, policy. The software management installation, we require now the use of zOS when installing 3.1. We started this towards the early part of 2.5, and now in 3.1, there is no custom pack dialog option, meaning the ISPF version. So you use zOS for this. For most of you who are thinking, I don't want to use it, almost everybody who's ever used the zOS version has told us that they like it, and they think it might even be better than the custom pack dialog. Of course, I think it is, but that might not be everybody's view. It does the same things the custom pack dialog does. It manages the allocation and placement of data sets. cataloging them, deploying the thing. It does the verifications with the workflows. It supports data set merge now, so you can take all your panel libraries and put them in one data set if you want. It supports temporary catalog aliases, the REST APIs to run reports. And we even have something which is a new identifier that can be fetched from the running zOS system to help you locate the corresponding software instance that's running. And then you can run reports on that software instance. And we're going to, continue driving down this path. And we think, that things are getting, let me say, there are fewer and fewer steps that you need to take. We added support for zOS software package signing in the spring. This is the ability to digitally sign the packages and then for you to verify them when you receive them at your site. These changes have been delivered now for the server pack and for CVPDO, and you'll be seeing them also added to shop ZPTF orders and receive order and hold data. Again, designed to satisfy the NIAP OS protection profile 4.3, and you can get this fixed cat IBM driving system required service if you want to know more about what you're required to do. We have a software update capability in zOS MF, so you can install corrective, recommended, or functional service. You can learn more about that at the link down the bottom. Assembler skills reduction is another big thing in usability and skills. We've had this going on for 2 releases. It's intended to provide a non-assembler facility to extend JES 2. Can be mixed with traditional JES 2 exits. We now have support in this release for job input processing, in addition to pre-conversion, post-conversion, and sysout grouping. We added new predicates and actions to access symbols, and the policy files, as I've mentioned before, are release neutral and don't require changes during release or service upgrades. There's no reassembly needed. They're dynamically enabled and disabled, and they apply generally across the JES plugs. Lastly, in usability and skills is simplification via removal. So we remove obsolete function. We've removed in this release JES 3 and BDT. We've replaced job notification that used SIM with direct calls in JES 2. The zOS MF workload manager policy application no longer uses SIM either. We removed the OSA device link and home support in the TCP/IP profile. We withdrew support of link station architecture and LAN channel station devices. We've removed something called the alternate base. Most of you, it was just another click box on the ordering menu that nobody knew what it did anyway, and we don't use it and you don't need it. Removal of global mirror, XRC, in this release, and removal of the DFSMS distributed file manager. So all these things, should reduce the code bulk and the documentation bulk of the operating system. Okay, scalability and performance. We talked about increasing the memory limit to 16 terabytes. Storage above 4 terabytes is delivered in fixed storage with 2 gig frame sizes. The new storage requires new APIs, so it's only available to applications that make a slight change. And zOS container extensions and other large memory consumers use it. We have another capability that we added in 3.1 called dedicated real memory. Dedicated memory allows the installation to set aside a section of memory for specific applications, so these applications don't compete with the rest of the system for the storage. It's designed for very large memory users like ZCX or DB2 buffer pools or SVC dumps, and it's available in all 3 frame sizes. WLM has implemented something called implicit long-term CPU protection. They automatically assign long-term CPU protection for importance 1 and 2 work when boost is in effect during the first period of the service class. and for any single period class with CPU critical set. So slight change there. The zOS Unix Skulker is a facility that runs periodically, cleaning up files. It's got improved performance and automatically now deletes directories when they become empty, and it continues to run even when it gets a non-zero return code. Hyperlink write support for multi-volume data sets is now available, and these enhancements allow things like DB2 log data sets and IMS write ahead data sets to use hyperlink. RMF, you're all familiar with. There's a new browser-based user interface. It's based on the open source Grafana interface. So it's a set of Grafana feeds and screens. It's available for Monitor 3 metrics and reports. Grafana has lots and lots of open source libraries for visualization widgets like bar charts and line charts and such, as well as libraries of other tools. This UI can support thresholds and alerts. So you could say when the paging rate gets above 60, send me an alert or something like that. There's as well, because it's open source, a rich array of alerting mechanisms available. There's also a configurable duration time slice, and data from sources can be integrated into the dashboard. So you could, for instance, have data sources from, let's say, a Linux system unrelated to zOS brought into the same dashboard as the zOS data, or vice versa. There's a new DDS server, distributed data server, which is a 64-bit DDS. It has enhanced security options. It's zip eligible, and you can even ask it to output data in JSON format if you find that more consumable. RMF now supports Crypto Express 8S, and it's enhanced to show all the partitions of a CPC up to 256 physical processors.
Gary, got another question for you.
Sure.
Is Grafana running under ZCX container or as a USS process?
It would run under ZCX, or it would run off platform, however you want to run it.
Okay, got it.
But it isn't a USS application specifically. Okay. Now on to availability. So in the availability area, we've been working on anomaly mitigation for a long time. Predictive failure analysis is our key component for this. PFA can monitor WM velocity metrics, JES2 spool consumption, common storage consumption, above the bar private area consumption, and it will predict ahead of time when it thinks you might be coming to an out of resource situation. We do recommend that clients enable PFA. It can give you headlights on problems before they become so severe that you can't fix them. And in some cases could avoid an IPL. Runtime diagnostics is also related to PFA. It kind of gives you the report that tells you more about what's going on in the system. There's a new REST API that will expose this RTD data to other management products, for example, the IBM Z Anomaly Analytics product. And we added support for detection of active slip per events. So if you accidentally left slip on, no one's ever done that, right? This will help let you know that so that you can take action. XCF has a application programming interface called Notepads. It gives applications an easy way to share data in the Sysplex. So, somebody on system A can be sharing data with someone on system B in the Sysplex, and you don't have to write assembler code. It's not so hard to do. The global notepads can now support failure notifications and automatic recovery of notepads to make it a little less problematic if something goes wrong. And the notepad sizes can both increase and decrease non-disruptively. System Recovery Boost is a hardware and software capability that we delivered over the last couple releases. We added support a while ago for IPL and shutdown boost, so we give you a lot of capacity during IPL and shutdown. We also added support after that for recovery process. So, for instance, when you're recovering a coupling facility, situation, it will boost the system. For Z16 and with zOS, we've added middleware startup boosts, so you can speed up the restart of DB2, for example, or if you're taking a large SVC dump, you can set it up so that you get a CPU boost so that it's less disruptive when you do that. And we've added it for hyperswap configuration loads and reloads. So any of these situations, we do it with no planned increase in your IBM software license. You can learn more about it there. For the middleware and SVC and hyperswap, there's some, you have to opt in to get that. Okay, the other ones were automatic. You were able to opt out of them. So, a little different when you get into this setup. Okay. Systems management. I mentioned early on about AI. We'll talk about that. AI system services is a new framework or component designed to make it easier for zOS to use AI. It delivers lifecycle support around ingesting data, training models, running the inferencing, and quality monitoring and retraining services. It integrates with the other AI framework components delivered in 3.1 and provides an intelligent management capability. It's no charge. Okay, it includes a no charge copy of Watson Machine Learning Core Edition and a no charge copy of the Z Common Data Provider. This is the components that are required to implement the AI system services. We also have the IBM Explorer with Python. This is a toolkit to help you access SMF data and extract insights from SMF. You can use Jupyter Notebooks and Python to access this SMF data, and you can learn more about that at the link at the bottom. JES2, we're replacing, we mentioned exits with policies. We also have done a bunch of work around job notifications. There's a symbol, sysjob notify X, and it includes a URI, a host name, and a URI. And when the job, let's say, completes, we post that URI, or when the job is submitted or when it starts execution, and we send it a document. And basically, it's useful for doing things like build pipelines and stuff where you won't have to keep polling to see if the job is complete. We'll tell you when the job's complete. That job notification is done with the zOS Client Web Enablement Toolkit, no dependency on SIM, and the job notifications are retained on spool so that if the target server returns, I'm not here, we can try later and say you have improved delivery. And these notifications happen even for jobs that fail early in job processing. Another area in JES2, there are new default spool policies to reduce spool situations where spool's full. These are JES2 wide and job unique defaults for spool usage. They can be tailored by your installation through the JES2 policy. The default policy is for the job to wait until resources are available. Other options include, of course, don't do anything or fail the job. If you use more than a set amount of spool, or the spool data set itself starts to become full, this policy gets into effect, and it will slow down and stop things from continuing to run and consume all the available spool. Installation. The installation resource groups can be assigned to a job, so you can make up your own groupings and have different policies for different groups of jobs if you want to do it that way as well. Mem-limit diagnostics, there's some improved commands for diagnosing high virtual memory. BCPII now is runnable in normal ISV and REX environments. Doesn't require sysrex. HCM, the hardware configuration manager, which is a priced feature that runs a Windows front end on HCD, is updated to Java 11 and now supports 64-bit for larger configurations. Our component for cloud provisioning and management has been improved to handle SMS and NJE configurations, as well as sharing templates, setting up default domains, and just generally improving the user experience. SDSF, and I know a lot of you use SDSF, has a number of new capabilities. There's a module fetch monitor that will tell you when modules are fetched, from where, at what time, what address space. There's a feature called the system event log display, which shows significant events and then a link to take you to the Opera log where that event occurred. There's a new dashboard which gives a summary of the current system configuration and highest resource consumers. There are several new primary displays of RACF information, basically giving you tabular SDSF displays of classes, profiles, access lists, etc. There are more than 10 new primary commands, including sysplex, LPARS, program properties table, SMF data. There's 20 new columns and 20 new actions. The browser-based UI has been updated to match. We've shipped the security configuration files that I talked about for zOSMF with SDSF to make it easier to set up the security. And a very exciting one is the display manager now can display individual fields on a panel with unique highlighting. So the return code fields in the job status display can now be color coded based on the return value, making it easier to spot, non-zero return codes. Change Tracker is a change management application that's a priced feature with zOS. And it now has a zOSMF plugin for simplified use. It also supports a 90-day self-service trial. We think people should give it a try. It's very non-invasive. When you put it on and take it off, it's not going to modify or screw up your system. Okay, it's inserts itself fairly non-disruptively. The InfoPrint server priced feature has support for EAV volumes and improves send-mail configuration. And ZWIC, the workload interaction correlator priced feature, is now included with RMF or advanced data gather. So you don't have to buy this feature unless you don't have one of those two. And we've added support for iOS information to ZWIC. You do need to purchase the workload interaction navigator price feature to actually see the data. For networking, the Z encryption readiness technology, this is the part that identifies connections and strong and weak encryption. ZERT now has some improvements with support for passphrases and support for saving the user's password or passphrase value. Our COM server has support for RDMA, or remote RDMA over converged Ethernet. The key thing here is it's using the Rocky Express card, and it can be used to connect two systems over the RDMA fabric, which is much faster than connecting it over a standard TCP/IP connection. More granular control over FTP level 2 or JES mode. There's a new SAF profile to control which users are permitted to use JES mode. Unix syslog-d support now has ATTLS protection. SNA recording, we're recording the use of the various SNA capabilities in the functional registry, and you can display that. And we have support to improve the management of sysplex distributor targets to allow pausing and resuming specific application servers, to help with failover. Okay, for data serving, we have cloud storage. This is kind of an overview chart. We can do cloud storage from the DS8900. That's using transparent cloud tiering. We can work between the tape library and the DS8900 using that same transparent cloud tiering. And then we have two capabilities that we'll talk about: OAM and cloud data access that can directly talk from zOS to the cloud. Okay, so the cloud data access provides a simple method to store zOS data directly in the cloud. So you can talk directly from the Z16 to a cloud provider that's S3 compliant. So for some that's very important. We do support, cloud object storage at IBM, Amazon S3, Azure, and Google Cloud. Transparent cloud tiering is where you write the data to the DS8900, and then it writes out to potentially a TS7700 or a cloud provider. And this offloads the movement of the data and reduces the CPU, but it does require, going through a device to get there. For HSM, there's transparent cloud tiering for full volume dumps. Enables all I/O for the full volume dump to be done by the DS8900. So again, it's a transparent cloud tiering copy out of there. Okay, and we have OAM cloud tier support where you can have. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just getting a lot of noise on my screen. The OAM component has now a cloud tier, kind of like it has a tape tier, right? And it can write data out to the cloud provider. We have cloud storage access. This is a utility that lets you put data like files out in the cloud and pull them back. Okay, so it's just a simple program you can call to do that, so you don't have to write all that code yourself.
Sorry, Gary, quick question from Luke.
Yeah.
Do you need extra zOS software licenses for cloud data access?
Well, no, it depends on, but if you're, of course, you're going to use it through HSM, you need HSM, right?
Yeah.
But no, there's nothing zOS beyond what the operating system.
So it's just a storage target that the OS.
Yeah, you'd have to contract with some storage provider so you can put stuff out there. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And remember, what you're doing now is instead of reading and writing data over a channel, you're reading and writing data over a socket, right? And so there's pros and cons to doing it that way. But if you're going to ultimately write it over the socket anyway, through, let's say, a device, then, you have the option of going directly.
Thanks.
Okay, so we had a number of client requirements in data serving, improved catalog recovery, some improvements to the catalog around reporting and messaging, telling you more information. And the catalog address space now starts and becomes full function in one place. So you won't see it start, stop, and then start again. Enhancements around HSM, the fix CDS to control who can display the records and modify them. Extent consolidation improvements and improvements to the messages. And there's enhancements to address more requirements around the SMS. Log rec was filling up, so we're going to do a little better job at that. Improved allocation, improved SMS reporting, and the addition of now dynamic exits in place of the static SMS exits, making it a little easier to manage that without requiring an IPL. RMM has some improvements to their component, including improvements around change volume. And they have a zOSMF plugin now that also includes the RMM defaults table information. Unix file backup and restore enhancements have been made. And then you can also now exclude files, and you can exclude files given a file of files, should you choose to do it that way. You can back up in use Unix files, which is good because most Unix files kind of stay in use for a long time. And there's some support for expire by volume, etc. The NFS server has restart and recovery improvements, as well as support for a more secure connection between the client and server. And we have a new union file system. This file system works on top of the other file systems and gives you a merged view of the data. This is something that's was kind of built in support of native containers, zOS containers, and is available with or without that. This file system was purposely built for zOS. The dataset file system was introduced in the last release, and it lets you look at all the zOS datasets, through the file APIs of Linux, of Unix system services. And so you can do things like, grep some things in datasets. We added support for multiple high-level directory qualifiers. Last area is security. RACF database encryption. The whole database is encryptable now as a vSAN dataset. The password phrase interval is now separated from the password interval and can be set independently. There are custom fields in the runtime environment for user custom data and an unauthorized programming API to allow you to get access to that data. Some improvements around special user revocation, enforcement of no sharing with ZVM, audit records for successful logons are extended now, and there are improvements in initiator startup where the parameters are put in non-executable memory to protect the system. ICSF has support for 3-part keys, first, middle, and last on the master key, and support for bcrypt hashing. There's read-only archive key support, so you can mark an encryption key as not to be used to encrypt anymore, but only available for decryption. The TKDS has private keys, removal from certificates, so you can have the certificate but pull out the private key, and it's the same thing, you won't be able to encrypt things easily that way. And disable the directory name format for CRLs. TLS has support for newer key exchange protocols. GSK Keyman now supports stash files instead of requiring a password. And we have support now in TLS 1.3 in ATTLS for Sysplex session ticket caching. The authorized code scanner, I mentioned before, something, if you have APF authorized code of your own, you ought to have this and run it. But irrespective of that, we also have now an authorized code monitor, which will monitor specific add-ins and report potential vulnerabilities. We have a bunch of work we've done for compliance support. zOS is now generating compliance records for the TCP/IP, FTP, XES, RACF, JES2. And so all that's now available in the IBM Security and Compliance Center. We take requirements through the Unified Ideas portal listed there. You can search and vote for ideas there. We also accept requirements through user groups like Guide and Share. We do have a sponsor user program. If you're interested in working with us on specific items, we love to get help from customers. So if you take that link there, you can learn more about it. And I thank you very much.